Climate policy is a choice. Let's stop pretending net zero will work. Stop this deadly madness now. Hi, I'm Michelle Sterling for Friends of Science Society. Robert Lyman sent around an email today, and I thought it was so important that I asked if I could read it on camera, and he agreed. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk you through the email that he sent. It's very powerful and frightening. Today, on September 15th, 2023, hundreds of Canadians will gather on Parliament Hill to protest in favor of radical policies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. High energy prices killed more Europeans than COVID-19. The Economist recently published an article claiming that high energy prices killed more Europeans than COVID-19. Their modeling suggests 68,000 people died because of high energy prices. COVID-19 was a virus-caused pandemic. High energy costs are a policy choice. Canada's net zero policies will dramatically drive up energy prices. This will devastate many industries that will be forced to shut down or move to cheaper locations in the world. That will cause domino effects when the price of everything will skyrocket because energy is life. Energy underlies everything we need and do and how we survive, especially in Canada's deadly winter cold. Simply put, unemployment and homelessness will rise, prices will skyrocket, people will die. Let's do a rough ballpark of the costs to Canadians if we go net zero and end our use of conventional energies like oil, natural gas, and coal in the next 27 years. Electricity and transportation costs will double or triple those of today. The costs of almost everything else will rise. Thus, what you earn will not keep up with what you have to pay to survive. The cost of living crisis, with less money remaining after covering the cost of living. There'll be less for people to save or invest. Companies will face this as well and will not be able to invest or hire new staff. Canada will be a much more expensive place to do business, so companies will just move elsewhere, taking jobs and investment with them. These trends will lower employment and wages paid in Canada. Less tax revenue, fewer social programs and services. With proportionately less income for the people, the government will have less tax revenue, and therefore social programs, health, pensions, and other public services will be reduced at a time when there will be more demand for such help. Food supplies from within Canada and other OECD countries will shrink because of reduced use of fertilizers, leaving people more dependent on imports and raising food prices worldwide. The severity of this effect will depend on how many other countries adopt net zero policies. Travel and tourism price hikes. Snowbirds will be no birds. Air travel and movement of air freight will be sharply reduced and limited to only essential purposes. Travel for tourism would be much more difficult and expensive. This would have dire consequences for the tourism and hospitality industries, and all but the wealthiest snowbirds will have to stay through Canadian winters. Canada, a land of riches where the people live in poverty. Canada will forego the economic and financial benefits of developing its immense oil and gas resources. These are conservatively estimated as being between 6 trillion and 12 trillion. With 12 trillion, you could get every Canadian $300,000. Oil, gas, and coal-producing provinces will have to shutter those industries, meaning qualified professionals and tradespeople will move elsewhere, perhaps to other countries. This would most seriously affect Alberta, Saskatchewan, Newfoundland, and Labrador, and the North. We will lose a highly skilled labor force. Many communities reliant on mining, pulp and paper, and other emissions-intensive industries and firms in other provinces will also be affected. Venezuela. Billions for blackouts. Adding so much variable wind and solar will make the electrical energy system less reliable. Brownouts and blackouts will damage industry, jobs, and put people at extreme risk, especially in winter. An unreliable power grid may dangerously invite attacks by hostile countries and terrorists. Net zero housing. It's unaffordable. Existing houses will be required by regulation to be retrofitted and to eliminate natural gas use for heating and cooking. The costs will probably exceed $100,000 per house. New residences will cost far more to build and will be much smaller. Most people would be lucky to have apartments rather than houses. The range of goods, from vehicles, appliances, even lawnmowers available, will be dictated by governments, not consumer preferences. There will be a reduction in the availability and so an increase in the cost of all the products we in the modern world use that derive from petroleum, such as plastics, paints, pharmaceuticals, etc. Social unrest and crime may lead to loss of freedoms. There may be significant social unrest and crime consequent with a removal of income security and basic freedoms. Environmental disaster due to undisposables. As wind and solar devices only have a life of about 20 years and EV batteries perhaps 10 years, the environmental problems of disposal of wind turbine blades and used lithium-ion batteries will be significant. China and India will boom. Canada will go bust. In the meantime, none of the developing nations, which are the world's largest emitters, such as China and India, have any intention of enacting such policies. If anything, they will be the direct beneficiaries of such policy, inheriting the factories and jobs that move to greener, less regulated pastures, and acquiring our skilled workforce that taxpayers have underwritten through funding our universities and trade schools. Global emissions will continue to rise as they have for over 30 years, and Canadian sacrifices will have zero effect on temperatures or climate. Heat or eat poverty has dire consequences, and many people will die of heat or eat poverty, depression, isolation, and despair. Climate policy is a choice, and a deadly one for Canadians. Stop this deadly madness now. A colleague also offered the insights that the claims that the climate activists demand are really just parroting Bill S-243, which climate senators are trying to pass. So they want a hard cap on fossil fuel emissions, a rapid and just and equitable phase out, whatever that means. Strengthen international commitments and cooperation, meaning we lose part of our sovereignty. Stop greenwashing, well, that's what net zero is actually really all about. Hold polluters responsible for their impact. Of course, they're not going to hold wind and solar and lithium-ion battery factories responsible, are they? Ban fossil fuel participation in climate decisions. Well, fossil fuels run practically everything of our modern day life. So that means We'll be leaving out the people who know how to produce energy, and we'll be only relying on climate ideologues. The activists also have these supporters. ENGO charities are tax subsidized by you, pushing climate policies that will destroy your Canada. If you'd like to learn more about the impacts and the science behind the climate change ideology, please come to our Break Free from Climate Tyranny Evidence Over Ideology event. This is our 20th annual climate science event. It will be October 17th at 6 p.m. at the Red and White Club at McMahon Stadium in Calgary. It's a great evening with a buffet dinner, very convivial, and you'll learn a lot. Robert Lyman himself will be there. You'll have a chance to meet him and hear him when he talks about when will climate policy hit the wall. And Dr. Ian Clark, Emeritus Professor, will do a reality check on climate and net zero. Ticket sales end October the 6th, so please get your tickets now. I know it's kind of a grim message that I just delivered, but these are the facts. This is the reality. We have to come to our senses. We have to stop this madness now. For Friends of Science Society, I'm Michelle Sterling.